Hello, everybody. This is Carol Milletta. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast. I'm your host, Carol Milletta, and today I want to break the silence about parental isolation. A serious matter, a serious issue that a lot of parents I encounter talk about. And I experienced it too. So, go back in time with me for a minute. I was sitting in my family room one night or one morning at 2 a.m., tears streaming down my face. And the house was finally quiet after hours of high energy power struggles with my twin toddlers. And in that moment, I wasn't just exhausted, I felt utterly alone. The kind of alone that just sits in your chest and it feels like a stone. And the kind that makes you question every life choice you have made up to that point. And so earlier that day, I had a quick call with a former colleague who was waiting at the airport. She was going out to present her marketing plan to field managers at an annual conference. That's the kind of stuff I used to do. But anyway, as we talked, I was simultaneously cleaning up pureed carrots off the high chair and off the floor, picking up drains and cleaning marks off the wall. And she asked me at one point what I was up to these days. And I heard my voice raise an octave as I said, just taking a little career break, but it's really so fulfilling being home with the boys. Now, even to me, it sounded like a pre-recorded message. After hanging up, I just felt a heaviness settle over me. I guess shame. And not because staying home with my children wasn't valuable, because it was the most important work I had done before and since. But I felt ashamed because I was lying. Okay, I was lying to her, and lying to myself, to everyone who asked me, right? Some days I really felt like I was drowning. Some days I would look in the mirror, hair a mess, dark circles, and wrinkled clothes, which was nothing like what I would do before. And I would just be wondering, what am I doing? And some nights I would reflect on conversations that I'd had with friends and colleagues, classmates, as I scroll through alumni magazines, hearing about them announcing their promotions, when I was basically celebrating if my boys kept their shoes on for more than 10 minutes. And what I didn't realize then, and what I think millions of parents don't realize, is that these feelings aren't a personal failing. They're symptoms of a silent epidemic ravaging families around the world. And that's parental isolation. It's not just uncomfortable, it can be dangerous. And we're really not talking about it enough. The statistics, though, should shock us into talking about it and taking action. So check this out. 65% of American parents report feeling isolated and lonely. Over 50% of British parents experience significant loneliness. And 62% of parents feel burned out, with nearly 40% saying that they lack support in their parenting role. And this was exacerbated during the pandemic. But behind each data point is a real human being, a mother, rocking a crying infant at 3 a.m., wondering if she's the only one awake in the world. You've got fathers sitting in parked cars before they go home, gathering up the strength to put on a happy face when they walk through the door. And you've got parents across the gender spectrum wondering why this primal, natural role feels so unnatural, so alienating and so lonely. But what should alarm us is that parenting isolation isn't just harming parents, it damages our children. This isn't about parental comfort or convenience. This is about the fundamental well-being of the next generation. And when parents are chronically isolated, children do suffer measurable harm. Research bears this out. It shows that children are more likely to develop attachment anxiety disorders, depression. They often struggle with social skills and emotional regulation. And the parent-child relationship, which is literally the most foundational relationship in human development, becomes strained when parents are running on empty, disconnected from sources of support and replenishment. So let's talk about how we got here. How did the most communal, collaborative of human activities, raising the next generation, become so intensely isolating? And part of the answer lies in how we live, in our physical structures. We've got these communities that we've designed, and they really separate rather than connecting us. Suburban sprawls where parents can go days without meaningful interaction with other adults. And that village that once raised children has been replaced by walls, fences, highways, even digital screens. But the deeper problem is cultural, because we've constructed this mythology about parenthood, especially motherhood, that it's just unrealistic and actively harmful. It's this myth of this natural, intuitive, self-sacrificing, eternally patient parent who finds complete fulfillment in the mundane tasks of childcare. And the parent who never longs for their previous identity, never resents the constraints of caring for everybody, and never needs support beyond their nuclear family. We've turned what should be a communal responsibility into a competitive individual sport. Am I right? And the unspoken rules are crushing us. I experienced this firsthand when my children were about 6 months old. So desperate for connection, I joined a Mommy and Me class at the local community center. During introductions, each mother would talk about their blessed journey and how their babies were sleeping through the night, or how they just never known such fulfillment. And by the time the circle reached me, I was drowning in inadequacy. Like, are you kidding, y'all? But I still went with the flow, and I joined the chorus about everything is wonderful, and I got this thing down. It didn't really seem like a safe place to unload, right? It didn't help that no one there looked like me. And so it wasn't until a few months later, when I joined Mocha Moms, a support group for stay-at-home moms of color, that I found the space I needed. Something unexpected happened there too. I opened up. That carefully constructed facade I'd created started to crumble. I heard myself say, I'm exhausted. My boys haven't slept more than 4 or 5 consecutive hours since birth. And sometimes I look at my beautiful boys and I feel nothing but overwhelmed. And sometimes I wonder if I made a terrible mistake staying home with them, because that was never on my bingo card. I felt a little bit ashamed to open up, and I felt like I had violated some mom code, right? But then another mom next to me said, I hear you. Me too. And then another mom chimed in, and then another. And by the end of that meeting, we had all removed our perfect parent, perfect mom masks. And for the first time since becoming a mother, I felt truly seen and truly heard. And it wasn't just what would now, I guess, be deemed Instagram-worthy parts of motherhood, but it was the whole messy, contradictory, beautiful struggle of motherhood. And that experience taught me something transformative. Our silence perpetuates our isolation. When we hide our struggles, when we perform parenting rather than authentically living it, we don't just hurt ourselves, we actively harm other parents by reinforcing these impossible standards. We become unwitting collaborators in our collective isolation. And this culture of silence creates what I could call fortress parents. So afraid of judgment, so committed to the appearance of competence, that we build walls around ourselves so high that no one can see in, but we also can't see out. We're not just experiencing isolation, we're participating in it. And this realization hit me with full force during a particularly difficult period when my sons were teething. I was also severely sleep deprived. My mother, who had always worked while raising me, came over, and actually she slept over that night. And so I was determined to prove that I was thriving in my new role as stay-at-home mom, and that I hadn't lost my edge, because I had chosen this different path from my mom. And one thing about her, though, she was always one to ask what she could do to help when she came over. She wanted to be put to work. But I was always hesitant to ask her because I didn't want her to think that I couldn't handle this. And so I thought the charade was working pretty well until one night she found me sleeping on a cot in my son's room. And so one son was crying in his crib because he was clearly hungry. But and I should say that during that time, I could no longer nurse them at the same time because one had developed acid reflux and he needed to be positioned just so when he was fed. So that meant instead of having like 3 to 4 hours break between joint feedings, I only had 1.5 or 2 hours between individual feedings. And I had already nursed one and fallen asleep. In fact, that's why the cot was there, so that I wouldn't have far to go when I needed to feed them. And so I heard him crying, but I thought I was dreaming because I was sure I had already fed him.
Hey, Mama, I get it. I remember those early days of motherhood, feeling totally outnumbered and out of my depth with my twin boys. Mother's Work, Pearls of Wisdom and Gems for My Journey is the book I wish I'd had back then. In my mini motherhood memoir, I share the real, unfiltered moments, from overwhelm to breakthroughs. Along the way, I discovered 7 guideposts that helped me find my footing, and I think they'll do the same for you. And guess what? I'm giving the book away free. Just head to mothersworkthebook.com to grab yours. Just pay shipping and handling, and also get your hands on some wonderful bonuses. You don't have to do this alone. Let's walk this journey together. That's mothersworkthebook.com. Can't wait for you to read it.
And so my mother heard, and she came into the room and woke me up, and she sat with me while I nursed my son. And I was utterly exhausted and discouraged and waiting for the reminder that, she had managed this without, having a breakdown. But instead, she sat beside me and she took my hand and she said, listen, motherhood is tricky. Motherhood can have twists and turns. It can feel like it's breaking you open, she said. But then she said it's supposed to, because that's how the light gets in. And in that moment, something profound shifted. My perspective shifted. My circumstances didn't change. I still had double nursing duty for the time being, but in my relationship to the circumstances, I was changed. I wasn't failing at motherhood. I was experiencing it authentically. And in that authenticity lay the possibility of real connection. So this is what I want every parent to understand really deep down. The antidote to isolation isn't pretending that we're fine. It's not pushing through alone, being stoic as you accumulate badges of maternal or paternal honor. The antidote to isolation really is authentic connection and vulnerability. When we dare to say, man, this is hard. I'm struggling. I could use some help. We create openings of genuine support. People are waiting to help. They just need to know how. And we build communities that are capable of holding the full messy reality of raising humans. We give other parents permission to be honest about their own struggles. And here's the revolutionary truth. When we stop trying to be perfect parents and start being authentic ones, we actually become better parents. Our children don't need our perfection. They need our reality. They need to see how humans navigate difficult situations with honesty and grace for themselves and for others. And they need to learn that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the ultimate form of courage. And let me be clear, this isn't about complaining or wallowing. This is about telling the truth of our experience so that we can change it. Because parental isolation isn't inevitable, it's created. And what's been created can be dismantled and rebuilt. So what can we do practically, tangibly to combat this epidemic? And it is an epidemic. I've spent I'd say maybe the past 3 years working with parents across the country to develop effective strategies for breaking isolation. And I want to share the most transformative approaches I've found. First, treat social connection as essential medical care, not a luxury and not an afterthought. I want you to schedule it with the same relentless priority you would give a doctor's appointment or going to get your car fixed. And this might mean attending baby classes, joining parenting groups, connecting with the moms of your kids' friends, or meeting up with a girlfriend for coffee, even if you have your child tagging along with you. Next, use technology, but with intention, as a bridge, not as a barrier. Social media can exacerbate parental isolation when it becomes a showcase for curated perfection. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm glad that it wasn't around when my children were really small. But instead, use it as a tool for genuine connection, as long as it's here. And next, engage meaningfully with your community, even when it feels impossible. So volunteer at work, volunteer at your church. I enjoyed that immensely. Neighborhood events, take regular trips to the park, and foster a sense of belonging with the other parents that are there. Next, you've got to destigmatize professional support. You've got parental hotlines and other resources that can provide resources to help fight depression and anxiety. And preserve your relationships and be fierce about it. Make connections through activities and relationships that remind you of who you are outside of being somebody's mother or father. For me, this meant returning to continuous learning. Aside from learning about parenting and child development, I explored scrapbooking, calligraphy, and writing. And I couldn't go all in with my previous ambition and passion or timing, but in small, sacred pockets of time, I could pursue these things. And those moments of reconnection with my pre-parent self didn't take away from my capacity to mother. They all enhanced it. And children benefit immensely from parents who maintain their wholeness and their humanity. So let me tell you about Maria. And this is a single mom I met through my research. Maria immigrated from El Salvador, and she was raising her daughter without any family nearby. And she worked full time, and she spent evenings isolated in a small apartment with her child, scrolling through social media, perusing all the images of what she called America's perfect families. And she said, I thought maybe it was my culture or my English or because I'm alone. She said, I thought everyone else had figured out some secret to motherhood that I just couldn't master. And Maria's turning point came at her daughter's preschool, where she reluctantly attended a parent potluck. And so another mother there admitted to feeling overwhelmed and inadequate. And Maria started to cautiously share her own struggles. And by the end of that evening, 4 mothers had exchanged phone numbers, and they created a Saturday child care rotation, each taking all the children one Saturday a month, while the others had time to spend with themselves and reconnect with themselves. And she said that arrangement really saved me, not just because of the practical help, but because for the first time, I realized I wasn't failing at motherhood. I was just doing it without the support that moms have always needed. This was a game changer for her. And, one time I was at the playground with my then 4-year-old twins, and they raced around with all that energy that simultaneously exhausted, but also amazed me. And while I was there, I noticed another mother sitting on a bench, and she was gently rocking her newborn. And she had that distinct new mom look, like equal parts wonder and also shell shock. Like I had been there. I recognized it. And so I sat beside her and asked the question I wish somebody had really asked me back then. How are you really doing? Fine, she said automatically, then looked down at her baby. She's such a good baby. She hardly cries. I'm so lucky. She smiled when she said that. And I said, my twins kept me scrambling for what felt like the entire first year. Some days it was all I could do to take a shower. That first year was something else. She looked up at me and she was startled by this departure from the standard parenting script. Then her shoulders dropped about 2 inches. Then she shared, Okay, I haven't slept more than 2 hours consecutively in about 3 weeks, she admitted. And so she said, sometimes I lock myself in the bathroom just to cry. Been there. And we talked for about an hour about sleep deprivation. I already told you about that. And that thing, I hadn't experienced it before, but that thing bordered on torture. And also, we talked about the identity crisis in the early days of parenthood and about the conflicting emotions that can make you feel like you're losing your mind. Real talk, hard talk, necessary talk. By the end, we exchanged numbers and we made plans to get together for coffee. And as we were gathering our children to leave, she gave me a hug and whispered, "Thank you for not making me feel like I'm doing this wrong." And that's what I want every parent watching or listening to this to know without a doubt. That your struggles don't mean you're doing parenthood wrong. They mean you're doing it authentically. Your feelings of isolation aren't a reflection of your inadequacy. They're a reflection of a culture that has failed to provide what parents have always needed: community support, understanding, and connection. Parenthood will break you open, as my mom said. It's supposed to. That's how the light comes back in. So listen, I want to thank you for tuning in today, and don't be too hard on yourself. You are doing important work, and it's work that you don't have to do alone. I want you to join us in our private group, the Parenting 411 community in Facebook. You'll find parenting tips, training, conversations, and fellowship with other parents. So just visit www.facebook.com/groups/theparenting411 community. As always, be sure to subscribe to our podcast wherever you like to listen or watch, and please like and share this episode with your friends and family. And above all, remember, it's never too late to be the parent you want to be.
We bring you this episode for the purpose of information and entertainment only. It is not the intent or purpose of the Parenting 411 podcast or Carol Maletta to provide an exhaustive reference or guide on all aspects of parenting, childcare, and family life. You are strongly encouraged to read all available information, consult medical or other appropriate professionals, and pursue all reasonable means to learn as much as possible about parenting to complement what you gain here, and then tailor the information to meet your individual needs. Yes, parenting is a serious matter, though it is not an exact science. The context and insights offered in this and every episode represent an account of knowledge and personal experiences of the host and any featured guests for the viewers' and listeners' information and consideration. The host and guests do not guarantee to our viewers or listeners any specific parenting outcomes from this episode or taking actions described here.